Brand new polls show momentum is building for Donald Trump. He is now in a dead heat with Hillary Clinton in the race for the White House. Standing by tonight at the Hannity Big Board with more Fox and Friends, Heather Nauert. Heather, what do we got?
Hi there, Sean. Well, Donald Trump surging ahead in the polls, matchups against his likely general election opponent, Hillary Clinton. According to a new ABC News Washington Post poll, Trump is leading his Democratic rival 46 to 44%. It is an impressive turnaround for Donald Trump. If you go back to March for the same poll, it showed that Clinton had a 50 to 41% advantage. The latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll also shows a very tight race. Clinton is beating Trump by 3 points, 46 to 43%, but her lead is within the margin of error. Sean, Trump is closing the gap in this poll as well. Back in April, Clinton held a 50 to 39% advantage over the presumptive GOP nominee. Now, of course, we're still a few months away from the 2016 election. A whole lot can change between now and then, but we are starting to see a trend that is developing, and that's considered a positive sign for Donald Trump. Back to you, Sean.
All right, Heather, thanks so much. Those polls are interesting. And here with reaction, the co-author of Rediscovering God in America, Reflections on the Role of Faith in Our Nation's History and Future, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, New York Times bestselling author, Newt Gingrich. If you look at the Real Clear Politics average, for the first time, Donald Trump now leads. This was not how this was supposed to play out, that the guy that beat 16 prominent Republicans is now running a general election campaign, and Hillary Clinton is in the fight for her life. What happened?
Well, I think, first of all, on Hillary's side, she can't answer any of the questions about her emails and national security. She can't answer any of the questions about the corruption of the Clinton Foundation. She can't answer a whole range of things.
Yeah, and you know, the fascinating thing is all of these things seem to be fair game. Tell me if I'm wrong or right. I watch all these presidential elections in years gone by. Republicans are portrayed as racist, sexist. They want to kill your grandmother, throw Granny over the cliff. And Republicans don't fight back with truth. Here's Donald Trump saying, I'm not taking any of this. You can't accuse me of being against women and enable your husband in case after case after case. Do you see a difference, and will that make a difference in terms of how the public views these attacks that historically the Democrats use?
Well, look, I think Trump is going to make a difference in 3 very different ways. The first, as you point out, is this is one of the most ferocious counterattackers in American history. So if she hits him, he's going to hit her back very hard. And he's not going to allow her to hide, you know, because she wants to have it both ways. She wants women's rights. She wants to eliminate the glass ceiling. But by the way, if you attack her, then you're being unkind to women. Well, she can't have it both ways. And no younger woman thinks it's fair for her to try to play both sides of that game. Second, Trump, I think, unlike anybody I've seen, has an ability to talk in a very direct, very clear language, which reaches a lot of people who Republicans very often miss. And third, you got lots of Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, African Americans, younger millennials, who are sick and tired of the same old baloney, and I think are ready for somebody to tell them the truth. And so I think a lot of the tools that used to work are now simply not going to work.
If you look at the disarray at what happened at the Democratic Nevada convention, if you look at Bernie Sanders not liking Debbie Wasserman Schultz and wanting to get rid of her, if you look at Al Gore would not endorse Hillary Clinton this weekend, or the numbers of men, Hillary Clinton has a bigger problem with men than the much publicized issue of Donald Trump and women, by far. And then, of course, Hispanic voters are abandoning Hillary in big numbers, as are black Americans. As you see the electoral map, I've always viewed it as very hard for a Republican to win the presidency. Is it going to change this year?
Oh, I think it is going to change. In fact, I think that Trump creates a totally new appeal. If Reagan had Reagan Democrats, I think Trump is going to have Trump Americans. I think they're going to be independents. They're going to be people who never voted before. They're going to be Democrats. They're going to be Republicans. And I think he has the potential to reshape the entire map to such a degree that we're exploring at Gingrich Productions, shifting from red-blue, which has been the standard colors, to totally new colors, just to make clear that this is a different election and you can't apply the old rules.
Yeah. I want to show you something. We talked a lot last week about the New York Times trying to do a hit piece on Donald Trump as it relates to women. And then all of these women mentioned in the piece, and then some come out in his defense. And then Trump mentions Bill Clinton and the issues involving Kathleen Willey and Juanita Broderick and Paula Jones, and that goes viral. The Politico this week, they have actually a headline: Ryan says Trump could win, but I'm not betting on it. Here's the problem. When you actually read the piece, he said, he said Trump could win, but I'm not a betting man. That was the quote. It wasn't, I'm not betting on it. He's not a betting man. The media seems very aligned with Hillary Clinton. How big a factor in this day and age of Instagram, Twitter, Facebook?
Oh, I think almost no factor, because everybody knows it and because Trump is quite cheerful about responding to it. The objective reality is that the New York Times is essentially just a propaganda arm of the Clinton campaign and shouldn't be taken seriously as if it was a real newspaper, despite the fact that they have some great reporters as individuals. But the institutional pattern now is so one-sided, it's kind of amazing. But I think what you've got with Trump, because of Facebook, because of Twitter, because of all these other devices, here's a guy who can protect himself and fight back, and because he can get access to television and to radio, he can actually he has greater impact than any possible media attack on him.
Okay, let me go through his agenda. I thought he did something pretty brilliant last week, and that is he named 11 people, a pool of people he would choose from. That every conservative that has weighed in on it that I have seen said this is an amazing list of people, a pool of people that he would choose from for a Supreme Court, and that's the type of justice he wants. So when I interviewed him last week, I said, okay, how serious are you about balancing the budget? He said very. How serious are you about energy independence? How serious is the issue of building the wall for you? How serious is it for you to end Common Core and build up our military and fix the VA? All of these things seem to be set as promises for him. If you put that together in a contract like you had in '94 that brought Republicans to power for the first time in 40 years, would that work today?
Well, I think it could work today. I think after the convention, and I know this frustrates you because you'd like it next Tuesday, but remember, our contract was late September.
You like to frustrate me. Go ahead.
No.
You're a professional at it.
Now, come on. Our contract was late September for a lot of good reasons. I would love to see the Senate, the House, and the presidential campaign work together in August after the convention, put together no more than 10 items that are big, that are bold, that are clear, and then invite every Republican candidate in the country to come in, because I think by September, nobody's going to think it's a disadvantage to be standing next to Donald Trump. I think he's going to gain ground every month. I think the more people get to know him, get to hear him, the more he learns. And he's, as you know, he is a learning machine. And he's really beginning to acquire a sense of depth. That, for example, you mentioned the 11 justices or judges that they mentioned. This isn't just a great list. It's a geographically distributed list. I'm writing about it this week because it really shows you a grassroots populism, even in approaching the Supreme Court, by breaking loose from Harvard. I think there's not a single one of those 11 judges that went to Harvard. That's a revolution in American jurisprudence, and one we've needed for a long time.
I have been very vocal. I think because of what you were able to achieve as Speaker, you are as big a revolutionary, the most successful person on the political scene today in terms of actually getting results. I think the country needs bold solutions. There's nothing about you that is not bold, very dynamic. I've said that picking Newt Gingrich as Speaker, as VP would be a good idea, and a team of rivals, people like Rick Perry, Scott Walker, Bobby Jindal, Pam Bondi, for example, of Florida, the Attorney General, and others, and Chris Christie and Rudy Giuliani. How good an idea is that?
I think it's a pretty good idea. Again, we're in a different era doing different things. He's got to decide. Trump has to decide what he wants.
Yeah.
He's got to decide what he wants, and because part of it may be also that he wants to go to a totally different kind of person. He has mentioned, for example, Carl Icahn as a potential Secretary of the Treasury. That would really break out of the mold. I look at somebody like General Flynn, who you'd have to get a waiver from Congress, but he might be the right guy to become Secretary of Defense. There are a lot of things we ought to be looking at here. It certainly proves that we have an extraordinarily solid group of people. I think Chris Christie would be an extraordinarily good Attorney General, for example, and would really fill that job. If we could get him to do it, I think Rudy Giuliani would be an amazing Secretary of Homeland Security. He gets it. He's lived it. He'd be tough-minded. And by the way, I think, just as a side note, this comment today by the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, who I like personally.
About Disney? Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I mean, I like Bob McDonnell personally. He was a good CEO in Cincinnati, ran a big company. But boy, you cannot compare veterans waiting to get into a hospital with a family waiting in line at Disney World. And that's the kind of insensitivity and lack of standing up for the veterans. And I think it's because he has ultimately been browbeaten by the federal employees unions, who have such an iron grip on the Veterans Administration that they are prepared to protect criminals, they're prepared to protect people who are corrupt, they're prepared to protect anybody they want to over the veterans. And today's comment fit that pattern.
That was a disgrace. There is no comparison. You're right.